Hello friends, this is Mike Williams and I'm back with another guitar video. As with many of my other videos, this presentation is a compilation of status videos I posted on Facebook to update my friends on my work to replace the fretboard on this second Gibson Baldwin guitar, which I picked up for $50. The Gibson Baldwin guitars are a joint venture between Gibson and the Baldwin Piano Company to manufacture entry-level instruments for beginning musicians. Unfortunately, these guitars, which were made in China around 10 years ago, were not the best quality. Far from it. I had to replace the fretboard because the original fretboard that came with the guitar had the frets improperly spaced, making intonation virtually impossible. Of the 3 Gibson Baldwin guitars that I picked up, 2 had the fret spacing issue. As the work progressed with this guitar, I also ended up having to paint the neck. Both the fretboard replacement and the painting was a first-time venture for me, so it was quite a learning experience, and I thought I would share that experience with my fellow guitar enthusiasts. I hope you enjoy the video. The comment section is open, but I will be approving them in order to keep the dialogue constructive. So thanks again for watching, and have a great day.
Hey, good morning, everybody. And I'm up early this morning to start the work on removing the fretboard on this Gibson Baldwin. And the reason, again, why I'm removing it is because the frets are not spaced correctly. And when you have that situation, you're not going to be able to intonate the guitar properly, which means it's not going to be in proper tune all the way up the fretboard. So what I have here is a replacement fretboard. It's rosewood. And just to kind of walk you through this a little bit, you can see here, let's take a look at the first fret right here that's on the guitar. And take a look at that fret. Now take a look at where the fret is supposed to be on the new fretboard. You see how this fret is pushed back a bit, and it's behind where the fret would sit on this fretboard. And this fretboard is properly spaced because I already checked it with my luthier tool. And you can see the same thing here. It's not a lot, but it's enough where it would present a problem when you try to intonate the guitar. Here, the same thing. It doesn't really correct itself until we get to about here, the 13th fret, and you can see it starts to line up. Interesting. So from the 13th fret back, the existing fretboard is a big problem. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this fretboard off, and the way we're going to do that is I have an iron, and then I'm going to place a damp cloth over the fretboard. And the reason why we're going to do that is because we want to be able to dissipate the heat. We don't want the heat to be right on the fretboard, because you don't want any damage done to any other part of the guitar other than the fretboard itself. I'm not going to bother to take the frets out because we're taking the fretboard off. And the way this works is as we go to loosen the glue, and the reason why we're using the iron, by the way, is because there's glue underneath the fretboard. That's how it's attached to the neck. And as we loosen the glue, we should be able to slip either this little chisel or one of these spackling knives in underneath and start to lift it up and take it off. And once it's off, then obviously what we'll have to do is we'll have to sand it to make sure it's nice and smooth, and then we can replace it with the new fretboard. Okay, so I'm going to start the process now of heating the fretboard with the iron and seeing if we can get this fretboard off. Now the only problem we could run into is if the glue or the adhesive used to glue the fretboard down to the neck is an epoxy. Then that becomes a bit of a problem. But if it's not an epoxy, then we should be okay. All right, so I'll be right back. Let me get the camera set up, and we'll start the process of seeing if we can get this fretboard removed. Okay, so the iron is nice and hot. I let it heat up for a while, and I'm going to place this damp kitchen towel over the guitar. You're going to notice that what I did here was I have a piece of tape. The reason why I did that was to make sure that when I put the new fretboard on, that I position it correctly, the correct starting point. Otherwise, that will create a problem. The frets can be off that way also. So that's why I did that. So let's just see now if we can get this done. Let me see here.
steam setting. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut the video now. What I'm going to do is just keep the iron here, let the heat make its way down, soften the glue, and see if we can get this fretboard lifted up. Okay, so I'll be right back. Okay, so it's been a good 15 minutes or so, and this is not looking too good. I'm starting to think that it is epoxy. And the reason why I'm saying that is because the iron has been sitting here, and as I go to test to see if I can lift the fretboard out, it's not budging. So I'm going to stay at it for a little bit more here, maybe another 10-15 minutes, and see if I can get this thing lifted. Now, if I cannot, then what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to replace the neck. So I do have a bolt-on Epiphone neck on order. I got it fairly cheap from AliExpress, and worst case is that I unbolt this neck and put a new one on. Now the reason why that's not my first option is because of the headstock on this guitar. It's the Gibson headstock with the Signature Series logo, and so I want to try to see if I can preserve this while putting a new fretboard on. But if I cannot, then I cannot. Okay, so I'll be back in a little bit. I'm going to get a cup of coffee, and we'll see if we can make any progress with this. Okay, so good news. It finally came up. So we're going to be okay. Now the trick to this is just to keep the heat going, and then as you keep the heat going is to slip either a putty knife, or in this case I have a very small chisel, and just keep going down until you can lift it all off. So I think we're in good shape. So let me continue to use the iron and work this off, and then as I'm near completion, I'll get back with the video, and then we can take a look at what we have. Okay, so we're making progress. We're about almost halfway through. I just want to show you. And what I'm doing is I'm using this chisel, and I'm using it so that the beveled side, I can have it down so that I can push up. Okay, so we're getting there. We are getting there. And the reason why I'm not using a cradle is because I don't want to damage my cradle with the heat. So that's why I have these towels piled up, in case anybody was wondering. So since I'm about almost, well, I guess a third of the way through, I should say. And as we get closer to the end, I'll turn the video back on and we'll take a look at where we're at. Okay, so stay tuned. Okay, so we got to a point where the, turn it around here, where the existing fretboard broke off. And that's because if we look here, this is right around a 12th fret where the body begins. And I suspect that there's just a lot of glue there. And that's what happened. Now the other thing I did was I took the neck off. Because of the heat of the iron, I did not want to damage the finish on the guitar. I believe this is a polyurethane finish on this guitar, and with too much heat I'm going to start getting ripples in the polyurethane. So I got to a certain point and I said, no, I'm not going to do that. So I built this little device here, and basically what it is, it's a cradle to do this type of work. And you can see what I did here. See how it's positioned, it's angled, and that's where the neck will sit. So what we're going to do is, so that we don't damage the neck itself, we're going to put a towel here, and then just do it that way, and then lay the neck in like this. There you go. Now to keep it from going anywhere, what I'm going to do is we're going to use these clamps, and I'm going to clamp this part of the neck down so that I can work here with the iron and get the rest of the old fretboard off. Okay, so I'll be back in a moment as I get this set up, and I'll show you what it looks like. So there you have it. I have the quick grips, 2 of them on, and the way it works is I have a 2x4 down here, and it connects to that bottom 2x4 and obviously to the top part here, and that's how it stays fastened, and it's very, very secure. So now what I'm going to do is
going to get the rest of this off by putting the towel on it again, putting the iron on it, let it sit there for a while, and get it off. And I don't have to worry about damaging the body of the guitar. Okay, so I'll be back as soon as I get this off, so hopefully it won't take too long. And here we have the iron just sitting on the end here. And it's very solid, it's not going anywhere. So I'm going to give it maybe 4 or 5 minutes, and then I'm going to see if I can start separating that fretboard from the neck. All right, I'm going to have a cup of coffee and I'll be back. Well, we're still at it with that piece of the fretboard from the 12th fret up. It's being very, very stubborn. So I've been trying to lift it from here. So what I'm going to do now is to see if I can maybe lift it on this end here and get something going. But this is being very, very stubborn. All right, so just a little check in here and I'll be back in a bit. Okay, so this was not going anywhere. And they may have used epoxy down here, and so I did something that I highly do not recommend anybody else do, and the only reason why I did it was because I want to preserve the headstock, the Signature Series, the Gibson headstock on this. So I took my chop saw, and what I did was I shaved it as close to the neck as I possibly can. So what I'm going to try to do now is to put some more heat on it and see if, because I have less rosewood to go through, that it will loosen the glue or the epoxy, and I'll be able to get this off. Now, last resort is, and it's really not that bad, is I have to wind up sanding it off. So let me apply some more heat to this and see if I can get this thing off. Otherwise, it's going to have to be a sanding job. Well, I'm continuing to work this, and by thinning out the rosewood, it actually is working. Now, undoubtedly, there's epoxy here. This is just amazing. It is so adhered to the neck. So what I'm doing is taking my chisel and very, very slowly and very diligently just lifting and chipping away at it. And ultimately what I'll do is, if it looks like this, I'm okay, because then I will just sand it and I'll get it to look like this. But I've got to get this out of here in order to do that. So I'm going to continue working it. Again, I wouldn't be going through all this effort if it wasn't for the fact that I want to save the headstock. Otherwise, I would just get a new bolt-on neck and I would be done. In any case, you get to see what a difficult fretboard replacement looks like, and this one is a difficult one. All right, so I'll be back in a little bit. Okay, so I'm done with the iron, and I have it scraped down very, very low now. And again, I did that by using a very, very sharp chisel and being very, very careful not to chip the sides of the neck, because when you put the new fretboard on, you want that to be all chopped up. Now the next step is to sand this, and that's how we're going to get this smooth and the rest of this rosewood off of this neck. Okay, so typically you would not have to do this. But whatever adhesive they used here, and I'm assuming, and I'm probably right, that it's epoxy, at least on this portion of the neck. Why it wasn't done up here, I don't know. But here, it was clearly a different type of adhesive that they used, because this was very, very difficult. All right, so let me get my little sanding block out and start sanding this, and I'll be back in a second. Well, more than a second. Be back in maybe about 15-20 minutes after I get done sanding it, and I'll show you what it looks like. Okay, so the sanding is done. I think that's going to be good enough. This is very, very smooth. I started with 80 grit and then finished with 220 on this. It doesn't have to be super duper fine, but it's nice and clean now. And I also checked the sides. I don't know if you're going to be able to see that with the light here. And did a nice job of not dinging the side. There's a little bit here, but I'm not sure I did that or that was there already. The guitar did have a couple of dings to it already. So I'm going to call this a day as far as getting the fretboard off. And then I'm going to start
getting the new fretboard ready to be installed. So this was a challenge, but it's off. And so the next step now is to get the new fretboard on. Okay, so that will be part 2 of this video, which I will try to get up within the next few days or so. Have a great weekend, you guys. Talk soon. Good morning, everyone. This is Mike, and this is going to be a short video. I want to show you a couple of things here before I get down to the gluing process of gluing the fretboard to the neck. So yesterday I showed you that I was able to get the old fretboard off from about the 12th fret forward. It was epoxied, so it was quite a challenge to get it off, but I got it off and it's sanded, so we're good to go. One of the things you're going to notice is that I have some yellow tape here. This yellow tape is to protect the truss rod from having glue poured in when I do apply the glue to the neck and some to the underside of the fretboard. And you'll also notice that I taped in a nut, and the reason why I did that was to make sure I had the proper starting point when I put the fretboard on. So what I want to show you is, in this video specifically, is because this question gets asked a lot, well, how do you keep the fretboard from slipping around once you apply the glue? How do you keep it in place to make sure that when you clamp it down that it doesn't shift and move around? Okay, so the way you do that, and let me just sit down here for a second and I'll take you through it. Hopefully you can see this, but right here you'll see that there is a very small nail head pointing up and out of the neck. There's one here, and there's one right here. You see that? So what I did was I drilled 2 very small holes in the neck, and I had 2 very small nails. And I clipped the heads off the nails, and I put the part which used to have the head of the nail into the neck so that the point is standing up. So we have a point here, and we have a point or a tack here. Now what you do is you position your fretboard, and this is why having the nut positioned where it's supposed to be is helpful. I already did this, so I'm just going to go through the motions here so you can see what I did. So once I'm satisfied that I have the fretboard positioned correctly on the neck, what I do is I then push down on the fretboard, on the rosewood, push down onto those tacks. There'll be one here, and there'll be one here. And I do suggest that you do it on opposite sides of the neck. It just gives it more stability. Now, when you do that, you're going to get, obviously, let me see if you can see this. I don't know if you can. Well, maybe you can. You see right here? Well, initially what you're going to get is you're going to get an indentation because of the head of the nail going into the rosewood. Then you take your drill and just drill that hole ever so slightly. Do not go through the fretboard. Ever so slightly, because if you take a look at how much of that nail head I have sticking out, you can see that it's very, very little. So now that you have the holes in the back of the fretboard and you have the tacks in the neck, when you put the fretboard on the neck, and let's just say there's glue on there now, what you're going to do is you're going to position it, and because of the alignment of the nail heads and the holes in the back of the fretboard, it's going to stay in place. It's not going to move. Now you have it aligned correctly. And at that point, what you'll then do is you'll use your clamps and clamp the rosewood down, the fretboard down, and then let the glue dry, and you're going to be done with that part of getting the new fretboard onto the neck. Now, the other thing that has to get done when you buy these fretboards, and I got this off of eBay, it came out of China, is that these are unfinished. Okay, so what that means is I'm going to have to sand the fretboard down. So right now, the fretboard is about 8/32 thick. And I want to get it down to about 7 to maybe 6/32. So 1/32 to 2/32. So 2/32 is a 1/16 of an inch. Got to file it down, or sand it down, I should say. Okay, and then I will use
fine sandpaper and get the fretboard nice and smooth. Okay, and then I'll put the frets on. And when you do that, of course, this is also going to clean up the binding, because this fretboard came with the binding attached, which is, by the way, going to make putting the frets in a little tricky, but I'll be able to do it, and I'll show you how to do that. And then what I'll need to do is I'll need to file down or sand down the sides of this binding a little bit to clean it up, and also to get it absolutely flush with the neck, so I don't have any overlap. Okay, but I'll show you that when I get to that part. The toughest part right now is what I just showed you. Just making sure that you can get this fretboard positioned correctly, because it's very, very important. And to make sure that once you have it positioned correctly, that you keep it in position when it gets time to glue it down. All right, so that's today's video. I am waiting for my radius block to arrive. I have one, but it's a small one. I need a large one, because the way I'm going to clamp this after I do the sanding, and by the way, we're going to use the radius block to sand, so to make sure we have the proper radius. Then I'm going to take the radius block and I'm going to turn it upside down so that the radius of the sanding block matches to the radius of the neck, and then I'm going to clamp. And that's going to keep the proper distribution of holding it down all throughout the fretboard and the neck. Okay, so that's my plan. But right now I just wanted to show you this, how to keep the fretboard in place in preparation for gluing. Okay, I hope that helped you out and enlightened your guitar repair abilities. And if you have any questions, please feel free to comment. Take care, guys. Hey, good morning, everyone. It's Mike. And today I'm going to glue the fretboard onto the neck. And in the previous segment, I believe I showed you that I had taped off the area which is the truss rod that's installed within the neck. And the reason why you want to do that is because you do not want blobs of glue going into the truss rod area and thus potentially making the truss rod inoperable. So you don't want to do that. So you want to cover it up. The tape will come off once we apply the glue. You just don't want to pour glue directly into the truss rod area. Okay, so that's why we have the tape there. We're going to use Tite Bond 2 premium wood glue, and this will have a translucent yellow color to it when it dries. I'm also going to use pieces of this sponge, which I will slip in between the clamps here to make sure that we don't damage the fretboard or the neck. Okay, so I'm going to put the glue on, and then I'm going to use this sponge brush and make sure we have a nice even distribution of glue. You want to make sure that you put a nice amount of glue on also. And what will happen is, once you clamp it down, of course, the glue will seep out between the fretboard and the neck, and you'll have to take a damp cloth and you'll have to wipe it. All right, just make sure you wipe it. You can do it afterwards when it dries, but it just becomes a little more difficult. You might have to wind up sanding at that point. And I want to try to do as little sanding as possible because I want to preserve the finish on the neck. I don't want to get involved with having to resanding the neck and applying polyurethane and doing all that stuff again. This has already been a lot of work for a guitar that cost me 50 bucks. So I'm going to try to see if I can minimize any additional work. I'll take you through this step by step. I have to get the other camera set up so that you can see what I'm doing. And then we're going to give this a good 24 hours to dry to make sure that the fretboard is not going to pop up or have any kind of gaps in it. And we're going to use quite a number of clamps to clamp the fretboard to the neck. And you can see there's my collection of clamps. There's probably around 8 of them or so. And so we'll get started, okay? So let me get the other camera set up so that I'm not moving around and I can use both hands and you can see what I'm doing. Okay, so one of the things I wanted to mention that I didn't mention in the previous segment is that when you do this work, you want to make sure that the neck is straight. So you don't want any bows, you don't want any back bows, or you don't want it to have a convex shape, meaning it's bowing up.
concave would be bowing down. So make sure that you adjust the truss rod, which is under this piece of tape here, to get your neck nice and straight. I should have mentioned that in an earlier segment. Now, also what you're going to notice that I did here is, again, I taped off this area to make sure that no glue gets into the truss rod cavity here. Now I'm going to be back in a second. What I need to do here that I didn't do yet is I'm going to put some tape down along the sides of the neck as well, because as I mentioned earlier, what I don't want to do is have glue just all over the place. What I want to do is I want to keep it to one area, small area, and then wipe it off with a damp cloth so that we don't have a mess with the glue being all over the neck. Okay, so let me just tape off that part of the neck and I'll be right back. Okay, so you can see here that I taped off and I left a little bit of the neck showing. And also what this is going to help us do is to fill in the glue, that is when I smooth it, to fill in any potential gaps, not because there's a gap between the neck and the fretboard, but maybe because this neck isn't really the highest quality, but just the way it was cut originally out of the factory, it may not be perfectly even. And in fact, that is the case because I did check. So the Titebond will fill those gaps, and then I'll smooth it out. And if I have to, I will use some like 1000 or 1500 grit sandpaper to really get it to blend nicely. And then I will also be shaving the binding on the fretboard as well. And I started doing some of it last night. And I don't know if you can tell, maybe from the previous segments, but when you shave it, all of the stain and all of the grind that was on the outside, it comes off, and it really starts to sharpen the look of the binding. So I'll show you how to do that also, but that's later. That's after we get this fretboard glued to the neck. Okay, so let's do the gluing now. So here's the Titebond, and you want to put it down on the fretboard. And you can see that it's an ample amount. Okay. And you want to move quickly because Titebond does dry fairly quickly. So we want to get this glue on the fretboard as quickly as we can. Make sure it's fully covered too. Don't leave anything uncovered. That's not going to be a good thing. And you can see why I taped the bottom of the neck. Okay, so let me just put a little bit more down here. Okay, so one of the things I should have mentioned, I had to stop the video for a second, was I had to remove the tape. And so I just did that. I removed the masking tape. And so now, let me just get this positioned correctly here. There we go. All right, I got to move quickly here. A little oversight on Mike's part there, but I caught it, so we're okay. And again, what I'm going to do is put a little piece of this, there we go, nice and tight. We're going to do the same thing here. Going to use another large clamp. You want to make sure that down by the nut, that we have a nice tight clamp. Have to make sure you have that down, okay? And then we're going to put another large clamp in the middle. Hopefully you guys can see this. Let me just put a little sponge underneath here because I don't want to damage, flatten the back of the neck. There we go. Nice and tight.
I'm going to do the same thing here. Put another piece of sponge underneath. Okay, so I got that large clamp on. Okay, so I'm going to put a 5th large clamp down here. Okay, so I have the large clamps on now, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a series of small clamps to reinforce in between. Again, I'm going to use this little cushion. You're probably not seeing this too well because of all the clamps in the way, but you really want to make sure you clamp it very thoroughly. So don't be using just 2 or 3 clamps. It's not going to work. Another one back here. Okay. Now I find these clamps work really, really well. You can tighten them. Make sure they're nice and tight. I think we're good. I'm going to put one more in between right here. Okay, so all the clamps are on now, and you can see that's quite a number. I did add the clamp right here, the red one. I noticed that I had to press down a little bit more at the end of the fretboard, and I did that. I also needed to inject a little bit of the tight bond into that section of the fretboard and the neck. So I used a syringe with tight bond in it. That's a cover, it's a cap, so that the glue doesn't dry out and get old on us. So I did that. So we're going to now give this a good 24 hours. And then I'll take the clamps off, and hopefully this is going to stay put, which I believe it is. There's a lot of glue there. And then what I'll do is I'll start scraping the binding so that it appears to be seamless where the fretboard is glued to the neck. I'll tell you what, this is a lot of work for a guitar I spent 50 bucks on. So what we're going to do next, and I said that we'll scrape the binding, but really what we need to do first is with my radius block, I need to sand down the rosewood fretboard. I have to take it down about 1/32 of an inch, and that's going to make the fretboard a lot smoother, and also it's going to take off the top layer of the binding to really clean it up, and then I'll do the scraping, and then we should be good. We should be all set, other than putting the frets in. Good morning, everybody. Just a quick update on the fretboard that I am installing on my Gibson Baldwin No. 2 guitar. The clamps are off, as you can see, and the fretboard is very much attached to the neck. Now, what I did do is, and I said I was going to do this second, I said I was going to sand the fretboard first by radius block, but then I decided to go ahead and to scrape the binding to shape it with the contour of the neck, and it came out very nice. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a video. I'll tack one on to the end of this to show you how to do the scraping. But basically, it's the same approach that you would use with a cabinet scraper, if you're familiar with that process. So what you do to do the scraping is you use a straight edge. And I have this straight edge with this little handle, which is great. It works wonderfully. You have a lot of control when you do this work. And you can pick this up in the Home Depot in the paint department. And it works the same way, as I mentioned, as cabinet scraping. So what you're going to do is you're going to hold the scraper at a very slight angle, maybe 10%. Do not hold it like this, 45 or 30. Don't do this. Basically, 10%. And what you do is you just scrape it along the side
of the binding. And when you do that, what you're going to see is the binding is going to start curling up, and it's going to become very, very smooth. And you're also going to, at least what I did here, let me see if I can do this without it falling over. For this part of the neck, what I did was I actually would hold the scraper at a slight angle, not like this, but like this, and scrape along to ensure that what I have here is the binding being very, very smooth, almost seamless with the neck. And you probably could see here there were a couple of places where it had some minor gaps between the fretboard and the neck. And for that, what I did was I used plastic wood by DAP, and I used a natural color because I found that the natural color actually blended fairly well with the color of the binding, so it makes it less intrusive. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to blow maybe 2 coats of clear coat onto the neck and the binding so that it has a shine to it. Okay, so that's the update. And again, the next thing is going to be to take my radius block and sand down the fretboard about 1/32 of an inch. The gap, or I should say the width, of a typical piece of binding is around 6 to 7/32, and this one is up around 8/32. And so I'm going to take it down a little bit. This way I'll have the proper clearance here from the top of the fretboard to the bottom of the slots on the nut as well. So shaving down 1/32 of an inch is going to be a quick exercise. And so I want to shave it down just enough so that I can also clear this up here. If you watch one of my previous videos, what happened here was the inlay was set too deep. And so what the person at the factory did was they dropped some glue in here in order to level it off. But when I take it down about 1/32 of an inch, this should all go away, and I should be able to flatten it and level it, and we won't have to worry about any glue or any problem with the inlay sitting too deep, because I would have filed it down enough where it's flat and straight. So I'm going to do that. And once I do all that and blow some clear coat on it, it's going to be time to install it onto the guitar. And so this was a good exercise. As I'd mentioned previously, this is the first time I've ever put a fretboard on a guitar. You know, I watched all the videos and I have all my books upstairs, but I really hadn't had the opportunity to put a new one on. So this was actually a very good experience, and I'm actually glad I did it. And I'm doing it on a guitar that cost me $50. And by the way, the fretboard out of China, and I got it off of eBay, shipping out of China was $9 plus $5 for shipping, so $14. So it's not a very costly undertaking. The only thing that is consuming about it is your time. It takes a lot of time to do this. But like I said, it's good experience, and I'm glad I had the opportunity to take on the work. Okay, so I think that's going to be it for the weekend. I'll probably get to the sanding with the radius block maybe early next week sometime. I got some things I got to do this weekend, and I don't think Rebecca's going to want me futzing with guitars. All right, you guys have a great weekend. Peace and love.
What we're talking about here is how you're going to expose the binding on a bound guitar after finishing. It's a beautiful thing to see that nice, crisp, clean line all the way around. And I think some people think you can mask that off. There's virtually no way to mask it and get it that clean by removing the mask. In a factory setting, people sat and scrape binding all day long. At Gibson, for instance, they use a steel blade. It's just a thin piece of steel that you can establish a burnished edge, turns into a knife essentially. Place it on the file, lean it back 10 degrees. That's so that you cut your front edge out here. You must remove the material behind. Slide it. slide it. But very sharp cutting edge. The other end, I want a cutting edge on the tip. It'll also cut the inside edge without gouging, which the point can do. So I'm going to lay it on, same way, tilt it, sharpen my cutting edge, and now the tip. You can affect it that way. I want it perpendicular and leaning back slightly. That is now a cutting edge, and I'll knock that burr off. Now you have a scraping tool. What I like to do first is clean this real tight corner out, and I use a utility blade because it really gets against the wood there. I'll start that first. At some point, I will be dealing with the inside edge, and it's very crucial that I have my blade really sharp and making that really fine, tight, clean line. I have still just a little material to remove, and then I will be at the edge. So here I go. This is the last pass. And that's a scraped edge. I see I left a little bit of material right there. I have to get back on my straight line and make sure I just get that off right there. There you go. So now that we have a nice smooth guiding edge to control our top line, we'll go ahead and start that. Thumb, so important in guiding. I'll start outside a little bit. Now we're on the inside edge. Good through the waist. As we come around the bout, even though I'm scraping on a slight curve up to the fingerboard, I'm going to use a straight guide, staying outside first, and I just move it and angle it until it mimics the curve. You have to make sure and have your color protected. That's just a sealer coat, because once you disturb this color after getting a nice line, that you can have a big problem, especially on a gold top, for instance, with a lot of material, sealer underneath, the gold, which is irreparable. You have to make sure and wait till it's cured enough so you can work on top of it. I have made the mistake of prematurely doing this area and looking up, and I've disturbed the finish. That has to be all redone. Scraping a fingerboard, you need to compensate for the frets, so a flat wooden guide works for that. But as you approach the body, the top, it's impossible to get the tip of this blade to stop short of the color of the top. So I discovered that I could simply use a nice, precise guide for protection. And this tip will fit nicely down in there. So it's two razor blades. There you have it.
Hey everybody, it's Mike. It's Saturday. Good morning. And the saga of my neck with my new fretboard continues on. Yesterday I got a little ambitious and I sanded off the old finish, which was like a natural maple with a satin finish on it. And I decided to go with a stain called Gunstock, which had a little more of a red hue to it. And I really liked the color where it stained properly. And I spent a lot of time sanding the neck down. It was nice and smooth. But you can see that the stain did not set in correctly. And I'm really not happy with this. You see right here? At the base of the headstock, above the binding. Yeah. Oh boy. Okay, so anyway, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to sand this down again, and we're going to go with gloss black. That's right, I'm going to spray paint it, and we're just going to go with that and be done with it. This has already been a lot of work, too much work for a $50 guitar, but quite a learning experience. So that's what I'm going to do. All right, so just a quick update. The next time you see this neck, it's going to be black. Have a great weekend. Hey everybody, it's Mike, and I got the light here. I'm working on the neck, and I wound up using Krylon's Cover Max, and the color here is cherry red gloss. And I'll give this maybe 2 or 3 coats, and then I'll apply some clear coat, and I'll go down to the auto store and go get the Duplicolor clear coat, the kind of stuff they use on cars, and that'll ice the deal. But here's the neck, and the camera's not doing it justice. It's not this orangey color. It is indeed a cherry red, and you can see it's glossing up. So I'll be putting another coat on in about an hour or so. But it came out really nice. There you go. So when I got the binding taped off. So another coat or so, and maybe 2 coats, and I think we're going to be in good shape. It's going to come out looking really, really nice. So after the stain didn't take, it just did not cover well. I don't know why that happened, to be honest with you. So I'm not going to overanalyze it. And to be honest with you, this is a close enough color to the actual body of the guitar where it's going to be a standout. And I left the gloss black lacquer on the actual headstock of the guitar on the other side. So the contrast will be great. So I'm real happy with this, and I'll be back in about an hour or so. Let this thing thoroughly dry, and then another coat will go on. Okay, so that's the update for this weekend. Hey, good morning, everyone. The noise you hear in the background is my coffee pot. And I just wanted to show you where I'm at now with the neck after 2 coats of the Cover Max by Krylon. And it's looking very, very good. And you can see here how it looks up against the actual body of the guitar, and the color is a very, very close match. So I'm very happy with this. So I'm going to wait till later today, probably around dinner time, to put a 3rd coat of the Krylon on the neck. And then what I'm going to have to do is to let that dry, obviously, and then I'm going to sand down the fretboard a little bit. In the previous video segment, I said I had to take off 1/32 of an inch. So I'll do that. And once I do that, then I'm going to apply the clear coat to the neck. And the reason why I'm waiting is because the clear coat has to be sprayed over the binding on the side of the neck. So if you've ever looked at a guitar, look at it closely, look at the neck and look at the binding, and you'll see that there is a clear coating over both. And this allows the neck to have a very seamless feel when you're playing. So that's why I'm waiting on that. So it's coming out really well. I also want to tip my hat to a gentleman by the name of Brad Angove, A-N-G-O-V-E. He has a YouTube channel, and he has a lot of good stuff on there that has to do with painting and refinishing, and he has a 4-part video series called How to Paint Your Guitar with Spray Paint, with spray cans. And I watched that last night, and it was very, very good. I wrote Brad just to fill in a couple of questions that I had. He responded right away. And so what I did was I put a slide together which takes you step by step on how to spray paint your guitar with off-the-shelf enamel paint like Krylon or Rust-Oleum and so on, and using off-the-shelf clear coat. And so I'll add that to the end of this video here, and that'll be that, okay? So what's going to happen in the end is I'm going to string together all of these segments on Facebook, and I'm going to have one video that's going to be uploaded to YouTube, so everybody can see, you know, what it took to get this particular Gibson Baldwin up to speed and make it a much better guitar. So the next update on this might be about a week out because I do have to do the sanding. I'll take you through that a little bit of the fretboard. So yeah, about a week. Okay, so have a great day and take care, guys.
It's so hard to talk to you with fellas hanging around you all the time. I want you for my sweet pet, but you keep playing hard to get. I'm going around in circles all the time. Dizzy, I'm so dizzy, my head is spinning like a whirlpool, it never ends. And it's you, girl, making it spin. You're making me dizzy. I finally got to talk to you, and I told you just exactly how I felt. Then I held you close to me and kissed you, and my heart began to melt. Girl, you've got control of me, 'cause I'm so dizzy I can't see. I need to call a doctor for some help. Dizzy, I'm so dizzy, my head is spinning like a whirlpool, it never ends. And it's you, girl, making it spin. You're making me dizzy, my head is spinning like a whirlpool, it never ends. And it's you, girl, making it spin. You're making me dizzy. You're making me dizzy. I'm so dizzy.
Okay, good morning everyone. Here is the Gibson Baldwin neck. I did put a third coat of Krylon paint on the neck. I did that yesterday, and it is a gloss finish, but I'm still going to be putting a clear coat on, and 3 coats of clear coat, as a matter of fact. And so what I'm going to do today is I'm going to remove the tape that's covering the binding, which is right here, and also the tape that's covering the actual fretboard itself, because what I'm going to do today is file down the fretboard with my radius block. And in my previous video, I had mentioned that I have to take it down about 1/32 of an inch. So I'm going to do that. I have to be very careful, so I will be ensuring that I've got a lot of towels and buffer to ensure that I don't mark up the freshly painted neck. And once I get that filing down, or that sanding down on the fretboard, then what I'll do is I'll retape up the fretboard, and then I will spray the clear coat on to the neck, and the clear coat will cover all of the red areas, including the side of the binding. And that's what you see on guitars that come out of factories. So that's the job today. So the job today is going to be filing down the fretboard, and then tomorrow, if I have some time, I will start the clear coat application. And I will keep you posted. Okay, just one more video before I head out for the day. I took the tape off, and you can see how really sharp that looks. I scraped the binding a little bit more, and it's looking very, very good. See if I can get some better light for you. Looks good. Looks great. Okay, so I will be sanding the fretboard today. Now, the other thing I wanted to mention is the tape that I use is this yellow tape. It's frog tape. It is a quantum leap ahead of this blue crap that you buy in the Home Depot. If you're looking to have no bleeding when you paint with the tape edges, the frog tape is the way to go. This stuff is amazing. So for basic covering types of things, I will use the blue tape. But as you can see here, I used the frog tape to cut around the side of the headstock. And the reason why I did that is because when I pull the frog tape off, you're going to have these nice, clean lines. And so I'm really pleased with it. Okay, so it's called frog tape, F-R-O-G, and this one is for delicate surfaces. And I bought it off of Amazon. I think it's like $7 or $8 for a roll. So just a little tip there. Okay, so my second goodbye for today, and I'll catch you guys after I get the clear coat on the neck. Have a great day. Good morning, everyone. It's Mike. It is a Friday morning in North Carolina. It's beautiful outside, but it is very chilly. So today I'm going to sand down the fretboard. As I'd mentioned in earlier segments, I've got to take it down about 1/32 of an inch, and what I'm interested in doing is to get rid of this depression in the inlay and the glue that the factory poured in there to level it. So I'll get that out of there. I'm going to start with 80 grit sandpaper, and then 150, and then going to 220. And when I do this, I'm going to use my sanding block, and I have a 12-inch sanding block. And what I did was I put double-sided tape, carpet tape, on the sanding block. I will then place the sandpaper against the other sticky side of the carpet tape, and this will keep the sandpaper in place. Now, when you do this work, it's very important that you allow the sanding block to do the work, which means you place it and you just go slowly back and forth. There's no need to press into the fretboard. And so I'll start to work it down and then smooth it out. And once I get done with the 220, then what I'll do is I will use the steel wool and get it very smooth and polished out. Now the thing is, when you're working with rosewood, because rosewood dust is an irritant and you don't want to be breathing it in, you should use a mask, and you should also use a glove, because a lot of people don't know this. Rosewood is an irritant. So if you're going to be filing it down or cutting it with a saw, be very careful. All right, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to start the first run with the 80 grit, and then I'll come back in a little bit and show you what it's looking like. Okay, so stay tuned. Okay, so we're done with the 80 grit, and you can see that it's starting to look really nice. Some of the grain is really starting to come out. The piece here with the glue is completely out now. So now I'm going to step it up to 150 grit, then I'll go to 220, and then I'll finish it with the steel wool. But it's looking real nice now. You can even see the inlays have really brightened up because we're sanding into it. Now the other thing I did was the dust from the rosewood I kept, and the reason why I'm doing that is because if I ever have to make any fretboard repairs, you can take the dust from the fretboard with a little super glue. You can repair any damage where the rosewood chipped on the fretboard, and it works great. Okay, so I will be doing that on the J. Terser fretboard, and I'll show you that when I get to it. But so I am keeping the sawdust. Okay, so anyway, it's coming along really well. I'm pretty happy with it. So let me switch to the other grit sandpaper now and continue on. Okay, so we're done with the 150 grit now. It's looking pretty good. Now 220, and then after the 220, like I said, I'll do the steel wool and we'll be done. And I do plan on doing the clear coat today too, so I'm hoping that I can get this neck done. This is a very long process, and it's no wonder when you go to a repair shop or down to a luthier why it is so expensive, because it is very time consuming. Okay, but I'm almost there, and let me put the 220 on, get that done. I'll take another video of that, then move to the steel wool, and we should be good. Now, one thing I want to point out is when you use a double-sided tape, it could be a bit of a hassle to get the sandpaper off, but just pull on it, tug on it, it'll come off, and the tape, at least on my block, has not left any residue on the wood itself on the block, so just a heads up. Anyway, so the 220 grit, and it's very smooth now. It's very smooth. So what I'm going to do is do the steel wool right now and really get it very smooth, and then I have to use the razor blade again and re-etch the binding to bring the white back out. Right now it has rosewood, like sawdust and very fine granules kind of ingrained in it. So, but once I etch it out with a razor blade, it'll look great again. All right, so I'm going to steel wool it now, and then the next shot will be what it looks like after I finish up fixing the binding, scraping it, and that'll be that. Okay. Okay, so I scraped the binding, and you can see it looks really, really good. It's nice and bright, nice and clean, looking really good. I'll just flip this over for you. You can take a look. Not bad. Not bad. Like I said, though, it's a lot of work. So if you want somebody at a repair shop, as I said before, or a luthier to do this work, I can see why it costs a lot of money. It's very, very time consuming. And the fretboard is really smooth now. It feels great. Now later today, and I have to wait for it to warm up a little bit because I can't spray the clear if it's too chilly. That's not going to work. That's just going to extend the drying time. And so I'll wait a few hours, and then I'll get this into the garage, and 3 coats of clear. So I'll put the first coat on. It's going to be a very light coat. Then a second coat, 10 minutes after that, after the first coat, and then a third coat, 10 minutes after the second coat. And then I'm going to have to wait 24 hours for the clear coat to dry. Then I'll have to sand it down with 1500 and 3000 and 5000 grit sandpaper, and then apply the Meguiar's compound and buff it out, and we should have a very, very nice gloss finish on this neck. At least that's what I'm hoping. Okay, so and here is the J terser that I'm working on. It's coming out nice. It really is. But I digress. All right, you guys, so the next bit of this video will be the clear coat piece of this. All right, and I will include with that a chart that I put together on how to paint a neck, which includes the steps of clear coating and so on. All right. Okay, so it warmed up nicely. So I'm going to go into the garage in a moment, and I'm going to put the first application of clear coat onto the neck. And so what I did was I taped off, obviously, the headstock, and then also the fretboard. What I did not tape off was the sides of the binding, because that's going to get the clear coat also. By doing that, what happens is you get a nice seamless feel between the actual neck itself, the wood, and then the binding. Now, before I clear coat, what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to buff the neck with this Scotch-Brite. And what that's going to do, obviously, is it's not going to make this nice and shiny. It's going to leave some scuffs. So I'm basically going to scuff the neck. And now the reason why you do that, and I know it seems very counterintuitive, is because the clear coat needs something to adhere to. So if you don't scuff it, you run the risk that the clear coat will not adhere properly to the paint. Okay, you could try it, and the clear coat may work just fine, but to ensure that it does, you have to scuff the neck. Now, when you scuff the neck, you do not have to compound it out. You just spray on the clear coat. When you spray on the clear coat, what's going to happen is all of the scuffing is going to go away. Okay, so I'm going to scuff it now and then ruin my piece of art here. And then I'm going to clear coat it, and I'll be back after I do the clear coating to show you that it turned out okay. All right, so I'll be back. All right, so the neck's been scuffed down, and I don't know if you can tell, but it lost some of its sheen, and that's okay. That's the way it's supposed to happen. Now, what I have to do next, I have to wipe off the residue that was left from the Scotch-Brite being applied to the paint. So I'm going to take some window cleaner, put it on a paper towel, and I'm going to wipe the neck clean to make sure that I don't have any type of dust sitting on that neck when I apply the clear coat. Otherwise, that could be problematic. Okay, so I'm going to do that now, and then I'll hop into the garage and start the clear coat process. Okay, so see you in a bit. I'm going to be heading into the garage now to do the clear coat. Now, anytime you're going to use spray paints, clear coats, make sure you put a respirator on. Very, very important. You do not want to be breathing those fumes into your lungs. It can be very damaging. Okay, so 20 bucks on Amazon. It's 3M, and it's good for 40 hours. So, and 40 hours of painting is a lot of hours. At which point you throw it away and you get a new one for 20 bucks. Okay, well worth the investment. So I just want to make that comment before I go in. I don't want anybody to think that I'm spraying away and my face is not covered up. So, all right, so I'll be back. Okay, so I brought the neck in. I did this all in the garage, but I don't want to take the chance that with any dust in the garage that it would tack on to the clear before it's done drying. 4 coats is what it took, and you can see that the gloss came back. Now, the next steps are going to be to lightly sand it, again starting with 1500 grit, then moving to 3000, then moving to 5000, and then compounding it out. I have McGuire's compound, and that should do it. That should gloss it up, and we should be in really good shape. And like I said, you know, what I did here was I clear coated the binding, only on the sides. The tops I did not. I still have to do the fret work. I have a fret press to do that. A lot of work, but it looks like it's paying off. Okay? So I will see you guys probably early next week when I start doing the frets. Have a great weekend, and I'll see you soon. Good morning, everybody. It's Mike. And here's an update on the Gibson Baldwin neck that I've been working on. I put the frets on. And the frets I got from Philadelphia Luthier. And the way I put the frets on is I used a fret press, and I'll show you that in a later video. And even though I used a fret press to push the frets in, on some of the frets I still had to hammer them in a little bit with my fret mallet. Not a lot, but in some cases the fret press wasn't able to push it all the way down. So if you're able to slip a piece of paper, as an example, in between the bottom of the fret and the top of the fretboard, then you have to get that fret down a little further. So that's when I resorted to the mallet. But it looks great now. It really does. Here's the headstock. And the reason why I did this, because some people have asked me, well, Mike, why didn't you just go out and buy a aftermarket bolt-on neck? It was because I wanted to preserve the headstock. Plus, I wanted the experience of putting a fretboard on. Now, I did paint it. The original color of the neck, as you recall, was a natural wood color. And all the factory did was to clear coat over the natural wood. That's all they did. Now, I used a spray can. I used Krylon Cherry Red, and I followed the directions of the video that I posted for you guys, and I will also reference it in this video here, so if you want to take a look at it, of Brad Angov and his channel. And Brad takes you step by step on how to spray paint your guitar with spray cans and have it come out looking really good. And this came out looking really, really good. So the trick is to put 3 or 4 coats of the enamel on the guitar, the actual paint itself, in this case the cherry red, and then I applied 4 coats of clear coat. And it's very important to put as much clear coat, in my opinion, as you can on the guitar. So at a minimum 3, 4 to 5 preferable. And the reason for that is because what you're going to do once you get the clear coat on and it dries, you're going to wet sand it and smooth it out. If you don't put enough coats of clear coat on your guitar, what's going to happen is when you go to wet sand for the final finish to really smooth it out, you could possibly sand through the clear coat and be back down to the paint, and that would just be a big hassle. I mean, not that it's not correctable, but you'd have to do some stuff all over again. So now the reason why I know that is because I did it over here. And when I did the actual scuffing of the neck before the clear coat, what happened is right here, it showed a little bit of the wood underneath. So what I had to do, there's a couple of things I had to do. I'll take them step by step here. I had to repaint this part of the guitar because of that. And I don't know if you can see this. It's going to be very tough to see. So can you see this line here? That's where I taped off. So to the left of that line is the clear coat. It's finished. To the right of that line, it's just the red cherry Krylon paint. There's no clear coat on this side. It's a gloss paint. That's why it shines a bit, but it's not anywhere as smooth as where I clear coated and then wet sanded. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to have to scuff this paint up a little bit on the right side of that line and get it ready for the clear coat. And while I'm at it, what I'll do is I will get rid of that line as I scuff it and maybe even lightly sand it with a very, very fine sandpaper like 1500 grit. And then I'll apply the clear coat again, 3 or 4 coats, then wet sand the clear coat and buff it out. And when you buff it out, you use a polishing compound like Meguiar's, the stuff you would use on a car. And what that does is it burns in the gloss and the sheen into the clear coat. And so it's coming along. Now, the other thing I had to do here, let's see if you can see this. Hopefully you can see this. But what I did was, you're going to see this line right here. Well, what that is I actually had to lower this end of the neck here relative to this side of the neck. The reason for that is because when I put the neck on the guitar, it was not seated level. So what would happen is the one side of the neck was up higher than the other side of the neck. Now, this is something that was probably there. In fact, I know it was there before I even undertook this work. I just didn't notice it. I just took it for granted that the neck and thus the radius was, was aligned properly, and it was not. And the way I caught it was I put the neck on the guitar, and then I looked at the neck from the bridge pickup down to the headstock to see how it looked. And when I did that, it was a holy cow moment. Like, what the heck is going on there? So what I had to do is I had to actually, like I said, lower this part, sand it down. That's what I did. I took a sanding block and I sanded it down until I got it so that the neck, when it's on the guitar, sits perfectly level and the fretboard sits level and the radius is correct. And that's another reason why I had to do the repainting. So now it sits perfect. Now the point I want to make is that before I discovered this and did this, that's how the guitar was made, and that's how it was sold, and that's how the poor kid who bought it as a beginner's guitar to learn how to play guitar, that's the type of guitar he had. The radius had to be all out of whack. I don't even know how the kid was able to keep it in tune. Anyway, so that is the update on the neck. It came out really, really well. You can see the shine. My video is probably not doing it justice. You can barely feel any kind of seam between the binding and the actual neck itself. That's because I clear coated, well, I sanded it first of all flat, and then I clear coated the side of the binding along with the neck. And it came out very, very nice. And I also put a new nut on it. Okay, so that's the update. I will have the guitar together pretty soon. That will be the next video that I'm going to do. I'm not going to take you through, the clear coating and all that stuff. I will leave the directions on how to do that, and also I will point to Brad Angoff's video for you to understand how to do the painting and the clear coating if you're interested. Okay? All right, you guys, that's the update, and I'll catch you probably within the next few days or so, maybe by Friday when I have the guitar together, and I'll give you the last update. Have a great day, and I'll talk soon. Good morning, everybody. Another update on this never-ending saga of this neck from this Gibson Baldwin guitar. And so in the previous segment, I said that I was going to apply the clear coat to this area of the neck, because what I had to do, if you can see at the top part of the neck, you see it sloped a little bit. Well, that's because the actual body of the guitar where the bolt-on neck slips in was uneven. So what I had to do was I had to reshape the neck itself so that the fretboard would sit level on the guitar, and I wouldn't have a problem with the fretboard, or the neck for that matter, tilted, which of course then would create all kinds of playability issues. So I had to make that adjustment where I had to essentially sand down this part of the neck so that the neck will fit into the guitar level and it will sit properly. Now, so what I did was I had this all painted. It was looking real good. I had 4 layers of the Krylon cherry paint on the guitar, and then I went to go apply the clear coat. And when I applied the clear coat, the dreaded crinkle took place almost immediately. Now, this will happen when there is an incompatibility between the paint and the clear coat that you're using, but I knew there was compatibility because I did the rest of the neck, which is covered with the paper, and it came out great. Well, what happened was that I did not wait long enough for the paint to dry and cure. And because of that, when I put the clear coat on, it had an almost instantaneous reaction. So I had all of these ripples and crinkles in this whole part of the neck here, which this part I don't care about because this is the part that's going to bolt down into the guitar. This part I care about because this is going to be exposed on the outside of the guitar. So I had to go back and I had to re-sand all of this in here in order to do it all over again. So the first thing I did was I used a scraper and I scraped off all the old paint with a layer of clear coat on it. It was only 1 layer of clear coat, thank God. And then I had to re-sand the neck in this area, and then I taped it off so that I can blend it best I could. That's why you see a little gap here, because what I'm doing is I'm spraying from here down, not in. So when I do this, what's going to happen is the paint will just kind of fade and blend in this area here, and also on this side of the neck. It's the same thing. And this will make it easier when I go to sand before I apply the clear coat. So here we go. So round like 19 with this. This is unbelievable. It really is. But I'm learning a lot from doing the work. And so that's going to be today's update. I'm going to put another coat of paint on it today, and then I'm going to wait probably around 2 to 3 days before I attempt the clear coat. And the other thing too is when you apply the first coat of clear coat, spray a very, very light layer on. Do not spray it on moderately or heavy. Just lightly spray and then walk away. And then come back a little later, maybe a half an hour later, and then apply some more. That was the other thing I think I may have made a mistake with. I knew I had to spray it lightly, but I probably didn't spray it as lightly as I should have. And that probably contributed to the chemical reaction and the crinkling on the paint. All right, so there we go. We're going to give it another shot. Thank God I have patience. Catch you guys.
Beware the wrinkle monster. What's the wrinkle monster? It's that giant monster that jumps on your project after you've been working on it for about 3 or 4 hours, and it ruins it. Usually happens right around the clear coat stage, and what has happened is you've just witnessed a bad chemical reaction. Now, this chemical reaction can usually be avoided, and it's usually only a couple of common things that cause it. And I'm going to show you what those common things are and keep that wrinkle monster off your project. 3 most common things that cause problems in your small projects. Number 1, coating times. Number 2, acrylic versus enamel. And number 3, using different brands of paint. Let's go through each one and let me show you how to avoid the common pitfalls. Coating times. Sounds simple, not quite as simple as you would think it is. What that means is the time between you put one layer of paint down and then the next one. Sounds easy, but it's really not. Paint does 2 things. It dries and it cures. When it's dry, you can touch it and it feels dry, but it's still releasing chemicals. You have to be careful when it comes to coating times because some paints don't work well with even themselves sometimes if they're still curing one layer underneath another. So look for the coating times directions on the can of paint. It's actually really simple. It's usually just under the main directions, and you'll see something that says dry and recoat times, coating times, something to do with time. What that means is when you can actually put one layer of paint down on top of another layer. That will usually save you the heartache of the most common problem with coating times. Acrylic versus enamel. All right, I'm no chemist, and I know most of you out there aren't either, so I'm just going to tell you the basics. Use acrylic with acrylic or enamel with enamel. Some people can tell you that you can use acrylic with enamel as long as you do it in the right order. Well, I've tried it both ways. It always seems to cause a problem, so just for the sake of keeping things simple, just remember, use enamel paint and enamel clear coat together, and use acrylic lacquer paint, acrylic paint with acrylic lacquer top coat, and you usually won't have any chemical reaction problems as long as you're still paying attention to the first problem, coating times. Good rule of thumb for that last one is use the same brand of paint. Now, what do I mean by that? Because of course, a lot of times we mix brands of paint. That's okay. As a hobbyist, we do it all the time. You just have to be careful. The main colors and the main paints that really seep those chemicals are usually when you lay down a bunch for your base color and then for the clear coat on top. So what's in the middle? That's the paint you got to be careful of. The big thing is make sure you use the same brand for the base color and the top coat. The color in the middle, yes, sometimes we use different brands. Just be careful with the acrylic enamel problem, and generally you won't have any problems. So that's what it means by using the same brands. Last but not least, always read the directions. If you have a problem and you've skipped this step of actually reading the directions, that's probably your number one problem. So read the directions with the paints you're using and always take your time. If you have any questions, remember, just use a small scrap of something that you're working on off to the side to make sure you're not having any funky chemical reactions. Well, that's about it for this one. If you have any questions, you know where to check us out. AirBrushTricks.com. I'm Tony B.
Good morning, everyone. It's Mike, and this is my number 2 Gibson Baldwin guitar. This is the one where I have been painting the neck. And we'll get to the neck in a second. I think we're just about at end of game. So what I'm going to do here is put this guitar back together. And as you can see, the body and the finish on this one is actually very good. And what I'll do is I'm going to take out the pots. I'm not going to replace them. I'm going to clean them and then use some deoxit on them. And that should be good and we'll be ready to go. So I'll do that. I will high-speed buff out with some Scratch X the entire guitar, including the back of it, because there are some blemishes on the back of the guitar, so we'll get that as spiffed up as we possibly can. Here is the where the neck goes. This is a bolt-on neck, and you can see, it looks like at one point somebody did something where they tried to adjust what was going on inside the pocket here. And because of that, what happened was when you put the neck on, before I sanded it and adjusted it, you could see here, I don't know if you could see it so well, but you can see it sloped down a little bit. And I did that because if I didn't do that, as I'd mentioned in the previous segment, when I put the neck on, when I bolted it on, and I looked at it like this, well, the right-hand side of the neck was sloped way down to the right. And the left-hand side, which would be the low E side, that was way up too high. So I had this kind of this angled, sloping deal going on, and that would have presented a huge problem with this part being up here, this part being sloped down. So with the adjustments I made by sanding down the that part of the neck, which was sticking up too high in the air, I was able to get the neck now and the fretboard where it's supposed to be, and the radius is perfect now. I actually did some measurements to make sure that I did have it right, and it's looking pretty good. So anyway, now with this, just to summarize a little bit, I had this done, and then again I had to sand this part here where the 4 screw holes are so that I can adjust to have the fretboard and the neck sit properly in the pocket, as I just mentioned. Now, when I did that, I had to repaint this part of the neck. And so I did, and when I did that, I didn't wait long enough for the red cherry enamel to harden and cure. And again, this is the first time I'm really getting into this whole painting and clear coating bit. And so when I applied the clear coat, without the enamel having fully cured, there was all this crinkling and wrinkling. And I'm going to add a video to either the show notes or maybe I'll embed it in this video so that you can take a look at what happens. So I had to resand the whole thing and take off all of the paint in this area and repaint it. And I did do that, and I waited 2 solid days for the enamel to dry and cure. And what I did was when I applied the clear coat this time, I applied a very, very light coat to start, very light, just a mist that I walked away. And then I came back about 20 minutes later and I applied another coat of clear coat, a little heavier this time. So I did that 4 times. So essentially there's 4 coats, maybe 3.5 coats if we consider the first coat to be a very, very light mist. And I might do 1 more coat just so that when I sand it, it comes out nice and smooth. I don't get any of that orange peel look to the finish. But it's looking really good now, and I think I'm at end of game as far as this neck goes. I will have to level the frets. That'll have to do. And but that would be it, I think. And then I'll put pickups in. What I did was I bought some, I got these on Amazon, 15 bucks. They're out of China. So what they are is they're black covered humbuckers. And I'm not going to use the black pickup rings. I'm going to use the cream color. So I thought that was kind of a cool look. But for 15 bucks, and I received it via Amazon Prime, which means I got this in 2 days. So I'm not going to go nuts as far as the investment into this guitar. This has been a project guitar, and a project it has been, I'll tell you that. So I'll get those in, and this is my little bucket of goodies, all the stuff I'm going to be putting in. You can see the chrome pick guard and pickup rings I just mentioned, and some other stuff in there. Okay, so that's the update. The next update will be the guitar, I think, probably done. I don't think I'll be doing anything in the interim. I don't want to bore you to death. I know some of these segments, when I piece them together, are a little repetitive. That's because sometimes they're days apart, maybe even a week apart, and I have to recall what I said previously, and sometimes I don't do a good job of that. But in any case, hopefully it's not too boring. All right, so the next update will be the guitar completely done. Take care, you guys, and have a great weekend. Hey, everyone, it's Mike, and here's my Gibson Baldwin number 2. And it's about dinner time, so I'm going to be packing it up for the evening. I got to clean this mess up. Take a look at this. Oh my God, I got shit all over the place. But in any case, the guitar is coming out very, very nice, and it has the neck on now. Frets are leveled, polished, fretboard has been polished. These are humbuckers. They're about 8 ohms each for the neck and the bridge. So you're going to get kind of a PAF type of tone to it, hopefully. They were cheap. Picked them up off of Amazon for 15 bucks. Just put the pick guard on. I had to shake that like you normally have to do. I put a new plate around the switch here. The wires going in underneath behind here to the switch were shortchanged again. I mean, you just can't work with that stuff. So I pulled it out and I spliced in some longer wires, and we're good to go now. Okay, so it's coming along, and it's going to look very, very nice when I'm done. And again, not expensive. The pickup rings, the pick guard, the plate for the switch, $6 off of AliExpress. Didn't pay for any shipping, free shipping. I have some knobs hanging around I'll put on here. I have the Wilkinson wraparound bridge knockoff. That was, I think, 12 bucks, 10, 12 bucks. Cheap, really, really cheap. And I have some very nice but inexpensive tuners coming. We'll put those on. I already have the truss rod cover, so it's looking really good. Let me just show you. Let me flip it around here for a second. Let me show you the paint job on the neck. It came out pretty good. I should say so myself. There it is. Little dots you see here, those are the screw holes for the tuners. There it is. It came out really, really nice. And the part where it was a little tricky, which was right in here, I had to reshape the end of the neck in order to fit into the slot correctly, so that the let me just turn it around, I'll show you. Hold on one second. Okay, so this way the radius on the neck is proper, and it's looking very, very good now. So before it was way off. Okay, so that's basically it for today. I will be working on it some more tomorrow. I have a little bit of a wait until the tuners come in. I have tuners, but they're a little old and beat up, and since I've been putting new parts, although inexpensive, on the guitar, I'm going to wait for the new tuners to come in. We'll string it up, play it, and see what it does, okay? All right, you guys, have a great Sunday, and I'll catch you early next week. Good morning, everyone. It's Mike, and here's the final update on my second Gibson Baldwin guitar. It came out very, very nice. And the guitar did not look anything like this when I got it. In fact, when I got this guitar, this is the one I got for $50. And when I did get it, it came with a neck like this, a fretboard, I should say, like this. This is off another one, my third one. And the problem with this guitar here is the same problem I had with the third one that I picked up, is that the fret spacing is off. So which means that you're going to have a heck of a time intonating the guitar, keeping it in tune all the way up the fretboard. So what I needed to do with this guitar is, and I'm sorry if this is repetitive, it's just that I've done a lot of updates and some of them are weeks old, maybe even a month old. I had to replace the fretboard. So again, the fretboard used to look like this, and now it looks like the top fretboard, which is a like a Les Paul Custom. And I got this fretboard off of AliExpress. I paid $9 for it, $6 shipping, so $15 in total. That was the price. And this was the first time that I actually removed the fretboard and refretted an entire fretboard. And it came out pretty darn good, if I should say so myself. You just have to take your time. But I did, I took my time. Now, with this guitar, what I did was I painted the neck. So the neck used to look like this. Essentially, it's, just unfinished wood, which was sanded, and then they just clear coated over it. That's all they did. And so what I did was, let me just turn this over for you. I turned it into this. Okay, so again, the neck that you're looking at used to look like this. And this was the first time that I undertook painting a guitar. And in this case, it was just the neck. I will be painting an entire guitar because I bought a do-it-yourself Flying V. But, I just took my time, and you have to sand the neck, obviously, get the old stuff off, the clear coat, paint it. I had to match up the paint the best I could. This is Krylon Cherry Red Gloss, and then clear coat. Now what I had to do is, I think I put on maybe 3 or 4 coats of paint, top coat, the red, and then there was about 5 coats of clear coat. And you'll watch some videos and they'll say, oh, you just need 2 or 3 coats of clear coat. And I found that not to be true, at least in my case. The reason is because once you put the clear coat on, you have to wet sand it. And if you don't have enough clear coat on the top coat, then you're going to get right back down to the paint. So in any case, so I think it came out pretty good. The paint is not an exact match, but you know what? It's, let me just see if I can get in there for you. It's close enough. Close enough. All right, so, you know, with this guitar, the things that I did just to rub new pickups, got these off of AliExpress. Was it AliExpress? No, these were Amazon, and they cost $15 for the pair. And they sound really good. They're 8,000 ohms, so they're essentially, you know, the average output for humbuckers. So we don't have hot humbuckers in here is what I'm saying. But they sound very, very good. They have the plastic black covers, which gives it a nice effect. And the plastic has no effect on the performance of the pickup. I put the wraparound bridge that I have been recommending. This bridge I got off of, I should say, AliExpress. It was like $8. These are the best wraparound bridges that I've been playing around with. The reason is because you can adjust the intonation and adjust the bridge and tailpiece, if you will, by turning these screws and, you know, moving the bridge closer or further away from the posts. So this helps tremendously in being able to at least get the intonation started. So the way I do this is I adjust the top and the bottom of these posts, and I work with the low E and the bottom E string first, and I get those intonated, and then I work with everything else. And also, as you can see, it has the individual saddles. Now with this guitar, I did have to flip the saddle around on the G string so that the flat side of the saddle was pushed all the way back to the back of the wraparound tailpiece. And the reason for that was because when it was flipped the way it showed up, which was the flat side of the saddle pointing toward the pickup, I couldn't get the intonation spot on. So when I flipped it around, I was able to move the saddle back more, and that did the trick. Okay, so I don't know if that made sense. Hopefully it made sense. I was actually quite surprised and pleased, probably more pleased than surprised, that after putting the new fretboard on, doing all the frets, that I was able to get the guitar tuned, intonated, and it's actually in very, very good tune right now. The intonation is spot on. But in any case, you can see here I have a custom truss rod cover. It says Gibson Baldwin Music Education, which is what this guitar is. If you take a look at the back plate for the bolt-on, that's what it says. So I just brought it up front to the truss rod cover. New tuners. These are just chrome tuners out of China. Plastic nut out of China. I bought them in bulk. They work fine. Again, the fretboard was $15 with shipping out of China off of Amazon. I bought the frets actually pre-cut from, not exactly cut, but you know, they extend out a little bit, from Philadelphia Luthier. That cost $11. The trim pieces like the pick guard, the pickup rings, the plate for the toggle switch, it was like $6 off of AliExpress, no shipping cost, so $6 total. I mean, you really can't beat that. Again, the pickups off of Amazon, $15. This was the wraparound was $8. The knobs were really cheap. I forgot what they were, but I usually buy these things in bulk off of AliExpress, off of Amazon, and you know, they're really, really cheap. I bought the brackets in bulk off of AliExpress. That was cheap. So the point I'm trying to make is everything was cheap, and I got the guitar really spruced up. And you know, if you take a look at the difference in the fretboards, the fretboard when it showed up was much, much dirtier than this. There was so much grime on it that I think I said in an earlier segment that I had to take a spackling knife, plastic one, and scrape off the grunge. It was disgusting, actually. So that's what it used to look like. And again, the frets were all off, and now the frets are spot on, and the guitar is in great shape. So this is it. This is the end of my work with my second Gibson Baldwin, and came out to be a pretty nice guitar. A lot of work. So if you're going to pick up these guitars, you're going to have to put some work into it. No doubt about it. No doubt about it. And the first thing you should check is you should check the fret spacing if you pick up one of these Gibson Baldwins, because I picked up 3 of them, and 2 of the 3, the spacing was off. The quality on them is not great. Okay, so you're going to have to get your head wrapped around that too. You're not going to have a spectacular guitar, but you can have a very good guitar. And this is where this is at right now. The third one, what I'm going to do is, and let me see if I can just pull this over here for a second. The third one, I'm not going to use the neck and the headstock. What I did was I bought this neck, and it came with the fretboard already installed and the frets already installed. What I did was I painted it, because when it showed up it was unfinished. So what I did was I painted the headstock black. See that? It has a Gibson style headstock at the top, and I painted the rest of the neck the cherry red, the same as the Gibson Baldwin number 2. Now, what's not on here yet is the clear coat is not on, so that's why it looks a little dulled out. So as soon as I put the clear coat on, wet sand it, and then compound it out, it's going to look great. Also, what's not on here is I have a logo. That's I should have it today, I would think, and it's going to say Sage of Quay. And I'm going to put that logo on, and then I'm going to clear coat. So the logo will be under the clear coat. So that's my plan for my Gibson Baldwin number 3. And looking forward to that. Going to have my own branded guitar. All right, you guys, again, that's it for this one. It came out really sharp looking. It plays great, sounds good. Another win. And like I said, I picked this one up for $50. So parts were really cheap. So I came out ahead of the game. All right, have a great week, and we'll talk soon.